Good evening, everyone. It is I. And tonight, I got roasted. Rather, I should say this week I got roasted. And I thought here I was in recording and editing and doing my photo stuff over on the Sime Studios channel and all these things, right? All these things that I do on Friday, because Friday's my crunch day. And a lot of times I have to crank videos. But if I'm set up and the lighting's here, I'm like, you know what? I should do also a video for my bros on the channel and my bro S's. Because that's how we roll here on the Gavin Sime Show. Good to see you all there in the live chat. Thanks for those of you that popped in the pre-show. And this is the show. We're going to keep this pretty short because I'm going to show you and we're going to talk about getting roasted. I'm probably going to offend some of you because I offended thousands of people this week. My tactic this year for just leaving a simple comment of how I feel that is as fact-based as I know how to make it on various channels, videos, etc., and then refusing to engage in any other fashion, refusing to be drawn into the rabbit hole, has infuriated, I guess, some people and continues to do so for my comments. But that's okay. I feel like my light is a little harsh here, so I'm just kind of like thinking how I can adjust it. It's fine. I worry too much about light. But light is important. I saw a post, and it was just one of these random posts that pops up this week. And it really got me thinking about people's biases. People's biases about everything. And the way we justify how we think and how we abuse others and how we think that we deserve more than others. If you hear squeaking in the background, it's my 3D printer. I turned it on the low, but I'm not canceling the print just to make a video. So yeah, you're gonna have to hear that. I don't even know if you can hear that. I can hear it and it affects me profoundly, but I'll manage. I made a post this week about tipping. Now you can see this post over at facebook.com/Gavin Sime. It was a public post on my personal profile. Facebook sucks. But that post is not the post in question. But I do want to show you that post because it does connect to the main post that I'm going to show you. And that post is about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which sparked quite a firestorm. But if I come in here to my personal profile, let me switch over to split mode. And you can see here on my personal profile, not the meme, right here. I said I was tired about servers upset over bad tips. You're owed nothing. Impress your client and maybe they will impress you. You're a servant at work, and if you can't handle that, find another job. Now, I just kind of expressed this because constantly lately, I'm seeing all of these news stories and stuff about servers being offended because somebody didn't left. Even in Mexico, servers offended because somebody only left $1 tip and gave it back because, so I realized news stories don't want to talk about real things. So they pick up these little lifestyle, personal squabble stories, and that's what the news uses right now. They either villainize the population and heroize the government, or they just talk about little gossip things. That's what news is for. It's not for the news, it's to draw clicks and entertain the sheep. However, I posted this not because I'm actually a bad tipper, because I'm not, and I don't need to defend myself, even if I was, but because I see these stories, and as somebody who works in a service industry, and who works in making products in the service industry, who has employees that do service and attention to clients, and that sometimes get tips and things like that, it really made me think, because I don't tolerate my employees having the attitude of, oh, if I don't get a good tip, I'm going to give bad service. If you don't like your job, there's the door. Simple as that. So it's not a matter, and I was kind of amazed by how this blew up and these comments. Some people agreeing, some people saying I was a loser. What kind of a human rights activist are you? You don't even respect people. And I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with respecting human rights. It has to do with calling people out on being self-entitled and think they're owed something. Now, we could talk about tips, but that's not actually what this video is about. If you want to join on that, that post is public over on my Facebook profile /Gavin Sime. not my page, my personal profile. And you can go over there and join the fray on that if you want. But the post I'm actually talking about, this post just kind of reinforced, right, that everybody has their biases. If you think about the person that's offended because you didn't give enough of a tip, right, Reservoir Dogs. If you think about the person that's offended because you didn't give enough of a tip, but if they go to McDonald's, Burger King, or Subway, they probably don't give a tip at all. Now, do those people deserve less? If a worker is in a restaurant with tablecloths, the worker didn't buy the tablecloths. Why does that worker deserve more than the worker that's in a hot kitchen at McDonald's all day? Now, that's something we can discuss. And again, I know it might be confusing, but it's not what this video is about. I'm just throwing that out there because we have these biases that we think this is what's normal, this is what's socially acceptable, this is what's moral. And while I think we should have a moral, godly standard, a Christian standard, loving your neighbor standard, right? And I think that's important. I know that's important for me. I'm so tired of people looking at me and judging me, not even by a biblical standard or by a godly standard or by a caring for others standard, but simply judging me and others by the standard of what society in the current culture says. That's BS. And the next story that we're going to go to was this post here. And this just popped up, okay? This just popped up on this page called Historical Images that at some point in history I must have liked. And for some strange reason, Facebook actually shows these kind of things and not the important ones. Okay? Let's switch. Here's the post in question. And it was the crew of the B-29 Superfortress Enola Gay on a parade in 1945. These guys dropped the atomic bomb that killed 150, 200,000 or more people, almost all of them civilians. And I got to thinking, I saw this photo and I saw these guys smiling, and I doubt they're as happy as they look, but propaganda is a powerful thing. And so like I do when I leave a comment, I left a comment. And that comment is right here. And I said, imagine being the biggest terror bombers in history who pulled the trigger on so many innocents, then pretending you're happy for a parade. The nationalists and state-worshipping patriots rage about 9/11 as an act of terror and cowardice against civilians, but ignorant of history, they believe this is fine. There were hundreds, I think, of replies. There's so many, and I didn't read them all. I had lots of laughs and angry faces and things like that. A few people got it. In fact, this next commenter that was also laughed into oblivion basically said the same thing, this Rael. So then we go on to the popular comments, like John, who says people fail to understand the atomic bombs had the highest casualty rate per bomb. Other bombs killed a far higher number. Once that war began, it couldn't end any other way. So I just want to stop here, okay? I just want to stop. And I'm sure I offend some of you with this too, because I just don't believe in nationalism. You're not better because of where you're born or your papers. All those things are irrelevant to your status as a human being. Every year, now regardless of the conspiracies and all the other things of 9/11, right, that we could legitimately talk about, let's just assume for a moment, just for sake of argument with the masses, let's assume that everything the government told us about 9/11 and who did it and how it happened and why is 100% true. 99.9% true. Well, 99.8. Well, 80% true. Now let's just assume it's 100% true. Every year, I have to listen to people on 9/11, doing the whole spiel of never, never forget, a mindless act of cowardice against innocent civilians. Now, 9/11 was a tragedy. Regardless of the real backstory, the tragedy is real. Okay? So no second thoughts about pausing to remember the people that died, but maybe we should put that into perspective. The 2,000 or so people that died on 9/11 versus the 200,000. And so everybody comes back and they say, well, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the bombing was important because it saved countless lives. The war never would have ended. The blah, 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 blah. All these things that are not part of history, that are justifications. And so let's actually go back and look at a little bit. I just want you guys to read a little bit of the roasting and understand how far gone our minds are. Okay? So if you look at these comments, and I'm just going to switch to straight screen here. You need to brush up on World War II. You can place blame squarely on the shoulders of Japanese leadership that was willing to sacrifice those thousands of lives and more. So I just want to be clear, providing that the 9/11 story is true, the terrorist groups that did the 9/11 bombing, is it okay for them to say on 9/11, you guys need to understand, the blame for this attack falls squarely on the shoulders of the corrupt leadership and them allowing the people to die. I guess, does that make it okay? Let me just try and switch some of these comments out and see, right? Innocent LMAO in reference to innocent civilians. So because the people were ignorant and supported the government, therefore they deserved it, and it was the government's fault. But they deserved it and they brought it on themselves. Japan was asked to surrender and they didn't. It's their consequences. Would you want the world war to continue? Now, just to be clear, that is a straw man argument. You don't know how the war would have ended or where it would have gone had the bomb not or not been used. Killing innocent people is always done in the name of the greater good. Every supervillain ever is slaughtering the innocent in the name of the greater good. Well, almost every supervillain, 98.8%, more or less. I just made that number up. Japan was asked to surrender. So let's get this straight. And I want to be clear here. There was a war. Japanese soldiers and government were also doing horrible things. And the individual was not getting a say in that. They were asked to surrender. So does that mean that the 9/11 bombers and the people that sent them, whoever they were, can say, well, the U.S. was asked to surrender. This was their consequence for not listening. You see, when you're the winner, you can make up crap like this. And you can build it into history books and TV programs and documentaries and build narratives that after a couple generations, or even in the same generation, people believe. When you control the media, you have power. So let's just keep looking. I guess you preferred the firebombs. The use of the atomic bomb was necessary to end the war. Now, if you actually study this, you'll find lots of people that say this, including the guys that pushed the button to commit the largest civilian terrorist attack in world history. And yes, literally the reason was, right? What did we do? We terrorized the population to such a massive extent that the Japanese government, as corrupt as they were, really had no choice. It was the definition of an act of terror. That's why you massacre civilians and children and women and even slaves, because there was about 20,000 slaves killed in the bombing also. Danny says that my statement is uneducated and asinine. Read about the planned invasion of Japanese main islands. It would have been a bloodbath. I see a lot of speculation. It would have. The war never would have. How ignorant you are of Japanese atrocities during the war. And no, that's actually not true. I've read World War II history and absolutely cringed at the horrible things that the Japanese soldiers did, the German soldiers did. But those are normally, our soldiers did those too. They tend to be conveniently scrubbed from the books. Remember who writes the history. Remember who writes the history. So, these go on, and I'll link this thread in the comments. Those innocent people would have killed you and everyone you know. I'm pretty sure not, actually. Most of those people were probably trying to survive like most people in wars now, as their corrupt, psychotic governments are slaughtering people. And I doubt most of those people would have killed anyone. So there's that. Tough shit. They started the war that killed innocents. Plus, they were warned it was coming twice. So that makes it okay, I guess. Oh, we warned you that we were going to attack, therefore killing the innocents. Are you seeing a pattern here? Everything, if you reverse all of this and apply it to something like 9/11 or much smaller attacks, we're talking about the largest terror attack in world history. Okay? And you're comparing it to attacks that are 100 times smaller, and the whole world is supposed to be outraged with us. But our country to this day vehemently defends committing the largest terror attack against innocents and civilians in world history. Imagine if we just let them get away with the unwarranted attack on Pearl Harbor to preserve your insignificant little feelings. I'm less concerned about my insignificant feelings than the 200,000 people who were murdered, Mark. But I don't want to get caught up in hyperbole or in distractions. By the way, wasn't Pearl Harbor some years before? And we had certainly fought that out and reaped retaliation for that. So I'm pretty sure you can't say, well, we had some people die at Pearl Harbor, which also sucked and is sad, but we're going to kill 200,000 of your people before they did it first. Nikki, you see the level of propaganda. All the comments are repeating things you've seen in propaganda in news stories. Gavin Syme, imagine passing history class. Now, you'll notice, as is my policy, I have an internal policy on this matter. I never respond to any of these comments anymore. Occasionally, I engage in dialogue on my own posts on my personal page, but I don't engage in these comments and respond to these comments. Tell us you don't understand history without telling us you don't understand history, Titus. Finally, a comment out of all of them. Americans are too propagandized to realize how right you are, says Jay. So like maybe 1 in 20, right, actually gets this. I guess the homeschool GED didn't teach you about history. It was war. Okay. So 9/11, it was war, right? It was war. There we go. It was war. I think that makes it okay. It was war. Imagine being provoked into a war via sneak attack, you big sissy. So you understand here that we have a government that not only now terrorizes its own people and imprisons its own people more than any other country in the world, but we have a people now that truly believe, even though they're all fighting about the politics and against each other internally, when it comes to our acts of terror, it's perfectly acceptable. And the problem I see, recognizing that this is many years in the past, but the biggest problem I see is that we don't learn from history. We don't care. We're just a mob. We want vengeance. Oh, they hurt us, so we're going to hurt 10 times more of them. You can never find justice, peace, love, or personal peace that way. But that's the mindset. We're taught to be filled with hate. And as long as we're filled with hate and justifying hurting others who did us no wrong, does it mean that we shouldn't have defended ourselves against Japan? Who knows? At this point, we don't even know what parts of the history are real and what parts aren't, because look at the level of propaganda. But no, it doesn't mean that as an individual or a nation we shouldn't defend ourselves, or that the Japanese were by any means the good guys, or the Germans were the good guys. But were we the good guys? Because we were the biggest terrorists, sneak attackers, etc., in the whole war, in all of modern history. How does that make you feel? Do you feel proud? I know I don't feel proud about the 200,000 people that my country murdered in the name of freedom. I've talked about this before. I don't feel proud about the people today that our soldiers are murdering in the name of defending freedom when really we're just invading them for oil. Do you feel proud? Because I don't feel proud. There's a reason I'm not in my country anymore. And I see a lot of vague, unaccountable responses. It was war. They did it first. War is a form of violence. Sometimes violence is justified. That's a statement, Steve, that's true, but it has no bearing on the reality that we murdered people. When we watch movies about our people, we're always the people that say, no, we don't kill the innocents, right? Because that's what the good guys do. You don't slaughter innocent women and children to win your battle. That makes you the bad guy immediately. And yet our country, the freedom people, are the biggest example in perhaps all of world history of slaughtering the innocent women and children to win a battle. And all the arguments you can throw at it of, well, the war never would have ended. A lot more people would have died. That didn't happen. You can't justify the ends by your crimes, by the means. It's not how it works. That's not a rational argument. And so as I'm looking through these comments and not responding to any of them, I realize how lacking in rationale we've become, whether it's about tipping and the biases we've formed in that, or about slaughtering innocents and how we were protecting freedom. We're so blinded by bias and propaganda when we really need to be asking ourselves, if I'm in the other side or in the third party, what do I see? I'm not on this side, I'm not on that side, I'm the third party. What do I see? Who was the war criminal? Who did justice? Were they both the villains or was one a good guy? If I'm the independent judge, like God is, what do I see? Are we the good guys? Well, no, we're not. And yes, I get we're pawns in war. I get the guys that flew the planes were the propagandized pawns, just following orders. You know how many lives they were doing their job? I was following orders. You have to follow orders. It was for the good of all. It was to end the war. It was to protect more people. More lives would have been lost. Can't you see the repetition of these mindless propaganda statements that don't ask the real question? Is this acceptable? Is this freedom? Is this justice? Is this loving our neighbor? Is this right? When we watch the movies, they say the only solution is to sacrifice the innocents. And the good guy says, no, I refuse to do that. And we cheer along and they find another way. But in real life, we cheer the murderers of the mothers and the children and the fathers and the innocents that do whatever it takes so that we get vengeance and things and power. I submit to you that if we do that, we're the bad guy. That's all for today, guys. Just a few things to think about, and we'll see you on the next one.